Hi, Kate.
Hi, Sacia.
Okay, in the 1960s, who do you think was the most influential person in ballet and why?
In the 1960s, there were many people who were influential, but I think that George Balanchine was one of the most influential ballet choreographers and directors in the United States.
How was ballet changed the most in the 1960s?
Ballet was changed the most in the 1960s because it went from a very classical time period to a neoclassical period. So instead of being very slow and conservative movements, the dances sped up. They got more technically tricky for the dancers, and boundaries and limits were pushed for the dancers and choreographers.
Would you consider the 1960s to be the most revolutionary time period in ballet history, and why?
I think in the United States, the 60s was probably the most, what's the word used? God, redo.
Would you consider the 60s to be the most revolutionary time period in ballet history, and why?
I do think that in the United States, the 1960s is probably one of the most revolutionary time periods for ballet, because Balanchine took ballet and he made it more common for the public to see and easily accessible for people in the United States to view as an art form. Wait a minute.
What effect did George Balanchine have on ballet?
George Balanchine came over to the United States from Russia. He came over as a dancer and then was injured, so he started choreographing. He went to the American Ballet Theater in New York City and took some classes with their dancers, decided that they were not good dancers at all by Russian standards, so he took it upon himself to revolutionize American Ballet Theater's curriculum and way of dancing. So by doing that, he blah, 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 blah. Let me get my...
I'll cut that. I'll just cut that part out.
Hold on.
Let's go.
George Balanchine, I got this. Okay, just let it keep going.
Okay.
Okay. Can you still see me? Am I here?
Yes.
George Balanchine brought in many modern choreographers as well as ballet choreographers to teach dancers different ways of dancing and different ideas behind movement. So instead of in the early 1900s where it was ballet versus modern dances or ballet versus modern dancers, Balanchine now decided that a dancer can dance both modern and classical ballet, and it can actually benefit a dancer to do multiple forms of dance in order to be better at both styles. So by doing this and by taking modern choreographers and helping the American Ballet Theater students in modern dance, he was actually helping them become better ballet dancers.
Was ballet popular before the 1960s?
Ballet was thought of as a very classical art before the 60s, and people only went to go see it if they were high in society or had lots of money. It wasn't for the common people. And then in the 60s, it became more accessible and thought less of an art and more of a joy to go and see ballet.